Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the History of Fan Anime. I'm your host, William Chow, and in today's episode, we get into another interesting reaction video to a TV show that came out back in 2016. I ran across this as I was going through a previous episode, doing the research and that kind of stuff, and I just found it really interesting that the parallels that happened in Japanese animation and how the history of Japanese animation sort of arose, really ran in line with this. Okay, so I'm gonna go through this particular episode and basically go over the particular points that came up in the video and go over it and how it relates to anime and basically the revolution, as it were, with anime. Okay, so before I begin, I want to remind everyone to go down below, click like and click subscribe, because that's if you have a chance to also maybe write a comment about how the experience occurred for you, maybe. All right. Again, YouTube just loves all this kind of interaction, right? Because that's what the algorithm works with. If you want to support me financially, I also have the links to the super thanks below there, as well as Patreon and PayPal links for the subscribers. Again, I've just recently posted a special episode about border crossings and that kind of stuff. Again, that's a topic I can't talk about here on YouTube, but again, with the subscribe page, you get that extra content that I'm not allowed to talk about, and the censorship rules and that kind of stuff. So basically, if you want to get to the more extended content, that is where you'd go. So in today's episode, I'm going to go over a TV show that came out back in 2016 called the VHS Revolution. Okay, now this TV show was made over in Europe, and it basically documents the rise of the VHS tape / the beta tape, and how it revolutionized how we watch and how we enjoy entertainment and that kind of stuff, right? And in it makes some very, very good points and very good accounts of exactly what had happened during this particular time. Now, the time frame, of course, of this particular revolution, that kind of stuff, is in the early 80s, of course, right? But this set down the shall we say the padding, the formula, if you will, for all the events that are going to happen in the late 80s, when I basically got my fan subbing equipment in the basically 1989ish era, all throughout the 90s. Okay, and this basically paved the way and basically made the monikers of basically the success stories that will lead further in. So again, I hope you will find this to be very fascinating, and again also allow you people to also kind of get the a different point of view from an actual documentary of how VHS tapes and that kind of stuff and this revolution occurred, because it very, very well uses the same ways that how anime basically occurred and basically became a genre on its own. Okay, so without further delay, let's get into this video.
It may be the fastest growing business in America.
This was the golden age of video stores too, which sprung up on every street corner. For the first time in the history of cinema, you could mix all types of films. It was the heyday of unabashed and joyful cinephilia.
My dad took me to the video store, which was a few miles away from our house, and it was like heaven in there. I mean, that was my idea of heaven. I can still remember how it smelled, and it was some kind of weird plastic smell in there, but there was no separation of genres. It was just a complete mix of films.
Being able to go to a video store and to be able to have this like wide array of just choice was just so incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, no, a video
amazing.
store was democracy. That's really what it was.
So as I mentioned earlier, I did open up my own video store, dedicated, specifically for Japanese animation. And again, I started at a time where, we focused on VHS fan subs and animes that were only available in VHS. So my entire wall here of VHS that I built was, massively expansive. I mean, you can see here that the rack was even went right to the ceiling, and I had a 12-foot ceiling, okay, in this store. So the rack basically went all the way up, and you need a little step ladder to actually get to the ones near the top. It was sorted. This particular part was sorted in alphabetical order. The Japanese titles were by their English name sort of thing. So if you're looking for something like, Cosmo Police Justy, it'd be under the C section or whatever in the Japanese section. It had all the fan subs and that stuff that were available through Arctic Animation that wasn't commercially released. So this wall basically, encompassed all that, and you can even just see that the walls were really, long. There was, large, like almost 3 full 8-foot sections of that. Again, so this is this thing was really sturdily built and really secured right to the to the actual thing. There's probably well in the thousands, probably like closer to 5,000 video cassettes that were on this particular site, all folk anime, and just like all the other guys say, there was just an alphabetical order, so all the genres are just mixed in together and that kind of stuff. And so really the only way you knew is just by the title, right? You had to know by title what this particular thing is. And again, at this time, internet wasn't like a snap sort of thing, right? You can't just say, oh, Cosmo Police Justy, what is that about? And then quickly Google what Cosmo Police Justy is. It's not like that, because the internet doesn't have these search engines. Google doesn't work that way at this particular time. That sort of infrastructure was not available. You just had to just sort of like, literally you needed to ask somebody what Cosmo Police Justy was. And, this brought this whole entire culture, this community together.
The video store became a community facility. Everyone frequented these new temples of entertainment regardless of age or gender. People would meet there and improve their movie culture. A utopian world for an entire generation.
There you go, thank you.
It's getting on toward closing time now, but the scene at Eddie's still looks like rush hour on the Hollywood Freeway.
What you did have in the early days of video stores was a social space. You wouldn't just go in, grab a movie, and leave. People would have conversations in the aisles. They would talk about different movies. There was always a very social experience in the same way as you would talk to a bartender.
So you've been looking for this for what, nearly 20 years now?
Since '77, yes. And I found it because of Donovan.
Just got lucky, I guess.
And man, I want an action movie. I want a science fiction movie. I want a romance movie. It was nice to talk to people. I mean, I know Netflix. If you like this movie, other viewers said you might like this movie. Computers only do that because some knucklehead in a cubicle told the computer to do that. It's much nicer when you talk to people, and that was a great thing about videos.
And that was really one nice thing about when I had my video store, is that people would just come in and they would not not only just pick up some movies or whatever, but they'd also want to come in and they want to talk about different animes. They shared their interests, and not just things that having to do with anime. I mean, some people are interested in, let's say, Magic the Gathering. Some other people might be interested in like martial arts or something and whatnot. Some people might be interested in like comics, superheroes or something like that. Some people might be interested in like popular media, like TV shows and that kind of stuff. The X-Files or about Battlestar Galactica or something like that. And so we talk about that. Some people might be coming in to play some video games or arcade games or something. So there was a wide mix of different interests, as well as different types of ages. As well as different types of occupations and beliefs and different sort of things. But the thing that kind of got everyone together is the fact that they're interested in different kinds of anime, and basically having this sort of wide range of variety of animes. Not just the ones that of course, the commercial companies picked and focused on, which is, a lot of times we're focused on the three G's, girls, guns, and gore. I had on the shelf lots of other stuff, which handled most of the other sort of genres and subgenres and all the kind of stuff that weren't covered by that simple description. Okay. And I said, I was able to build many different sort of friendships and sort of long-lasting relationships with some of my customers and that kind of stuff because I learned so much about them and shared some of the same interests and that kind of stuff as them. And we basically were able to spend much time with each other, even as as close friends, right, and whatnot. So it was a really good experience to own a store and run a store like that.
Do you know a director called John Alan Schwartz?
How's his last name?
Schwartz.
No.
Who? Sorry?
John Alan Schwartz.
What did he make? Sorry.
I don't know if I know him.
John Allen Schwartz? Who is it?
No, I don't believe I do. Who's that?
Who is John Alan Schwartz?
John Allen Schwartz is my brother. He was responsible for coming up with the idea. I came up with the idea to intersperse real film footage with reenacted footage, and to make the reenacted footage so realistic that there was no way for the viewer to separate reality from what they were producing as nonfiction from fiction.
VHS redefined the limits of what was showable. Selling hundreds of thousands of copies, Faces of posed the question of ethics and capitalism.
When I was doing Faces of 4, I wanted to make it as grim and disgusting and as horrifying as possible. Now, I mean, is there an element of like morality involved and so forth? None. Zero. It would have been great if I was the kind of guy who said, I can't go forth with this project because it's defiling me as a human being. I wasn't that guy. I was the perfect guy for the job.
Now, like, most people that lived in the VHS era, especially around this particular time, this movie, just was absolutely, like, horrific. And I remember, it was one of those type of things where, like, people would come up to you, have you seen this? Have you seen this? And of course, you go, all right, fine, I'm curious, like, how could it be so bad? Like, why so many people, like, talking about it and that kind of stuff? And it's just the pure, curiosity of it, the pure, like, the fact that if no one said anything about it and it just kept, in its own little circle, then probably the majority of mass people would not know about it. But because of the fact that, they've made an issue of it or whatever, it got banned or whatever, then all of a sudden the people go, well, this is like a badge of, of achievement here. Oh, okay. If it got banned by England or something, then it must be good stuff. So people will check it out. And again, I said that movie kind of wrecked me too. The other sort of it's a funny experience that I came out because I remember. I remember I was going to I asked my dad if he would go to a movie, and I was like 8, okay, and I don't know if he did it as fun or just to traumatize me for something, but he decided to take me to go see Jaws, okay, the first one. And being at such a young age and that kind of stuff, and going to a movie theater to see that, that movie like absolutely wrecked me in terms of ever wanting to go to enjoy like water sports or anything like that. The point I wanted to get into this is that when people are able to innovate this kind of this kind of storytelling, this kind of movie making, you can come up with some really really bizarre concepts and very very extreme type of things. And so in terms of anime, when things like the first ones I remember was like things like Angel of Darkness and La Blue Girl and Overfiend. Okay, I mean these to a person who's just used to watching things like Scooby Doo and Justice League of America and Spider-Man and Amazing Friends and these kind of things. These are like totally mind blowing, it's just insane jumps in what was what was storytelling and what was what was possible, and like who the hell came up with such a like just crazy idea, right? And I think that's also one of these things that fueled some of the also fueled the interest in anime, but also fueled a lot of the hatred and the need for people to censor it or block it and that kind of stuff. And of course, in this era, especially with VHS trading and that kind of stuff, it was unblockable, uncensorable, and and uncontrollable, as it were. And I think you could probably say that the internet is much the same way too.
But only in one country did videos cause a national outcry.
The problem was that the videos had no classification. Films did. And there are all sorts of horrors sort of getting onto these videos. It mixed sex with violence, real violence, beatings, killings. It brought in some awful situations of using animals and, well, you think of it, it just went on and on.
Graham Bright found a prime supporter. In the space of months, the tabloid press made horror films the hottest topic in the land. In its sights were 40 films it labelled video nasties.
If you're a horror fan, you picked up fanzines like Sam Hain or Shock Express or The Dark Side, and you found other horror fans through, writing letters, and people would swap their lists of the films that they had, and you'd copy them, and there'd be an underground of people either selling bootleg copies of uncut versions of Zombie Flesh Eaters or whatever it was, or selling the actual video nasties which had been taken off the shelves. And it was driven underground, and once you drive something underground, it makes you all the more passionate about it.
So even at this particular time, and this is like the early 80s, by the time we got to the late 80s, like 89 and into the 90s, people who wanted to get things like anime and that kind of stuff, which wasn't available in video stores, and even though that the government regulations and that kind of stuff were woefully behind the times, and this culture of people going to a video store and talking about the titles and that kind of stuff and whatnot, that's how people knew and learned about videos and that kind of stuff. So basically, by bringing these titles and that kind of stuff to the forefront, by actually naming 40 video nasties, for example, all of a sudden these people saying, well, I don't know, I can't decide what to watch. Should I watch Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, or should I watch the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes or something? And then someone could go, hey, there's this article in this newspaper says they got these 40 video nasties. And they're going, oh, really? It's like, I'm not really used to horror films. Which ones are, obviously, if they're on this video nasties list, these are obviously, the worst of the worst. Okay, well, I gotta get my hands on one of those. And of course, just like as this gentleman suggested, even though you push it out of the, the video store type of thing, but people who are enthusiasts and that kind of stuff, got hold of these fanzines. And then just like, we did with tape trading and that kind of stuff with anime in the early 80s, all the way into the 90s, these people or distributors of anime fan subs and that kind of stuff, they all use fanzines and that kind of stuff to get their address and their lists and that kind of stuff of fan sub lists and that kind of stuff out there, and basically made it so that if you wanted, a fan sub of something that, might be questionable in your area or whatever, or not allowed to be on the shelf or whatever, or someone suggested, oh yeah, you got to get Overfiend and La Blue Girl and that kind of stuff. Well, then that's one of the first things you look on when you look on these lists, and then of course all this trading starts happening all over the place, and it literally, as the documentary points out, no matter what the government did, it was unstoppable, uncensorable, and just by pushing it underground, it actually made it even uncontrollable. So it's just sort of make a mention of things during this era.
First off, I don't feel comfortable, children at all, watching movies intended by adults. But that is the price we pay for freedom. The price we pay is that kids can go into their parents' liquor cabinet and get drunk on a bottle of vodka. It's unstoppable. It's the beautiful freedom that we have, that kids could be exposed to stuff that we in an ideal world wouldn't want them exposed to. But that's the reality of the world.
Now, I like how this guy uses the example of alcohol, to tie this in, because it's to us it all seems to make sense. That children should not be exposed to things that are has an age restriction of 18 and over that kind of stuff. But he really hits the nail really accurately by using the alcohol thing, because as I said, I grew up in a very small community, less than 100,000 people in Prince George, okay, and it was part of the ingrained culture at when going through high school that on Friday night, we'd find out where the house party was, and that was a small community. You sort of knew everybody. You knew everyone's who everyone's sort of friends with, and you knew everyone's sort of siblings and that kind of stuff. So the first thing is to secure the the friend that has the older brother, older sister that would obviously do the alcohol run to the to the liquor store to so you pass them off $20 and say, okay, here, go get me a case of beer or whatever, cases of beer or whatever. And then they'd use their older siblings to go and get them for you. And then, of course, you would then, of course, show up at the party on Friday, and it's like, hey, we didn't invite you. Well, no problem. I brought the beer. And then it's like, okay, yeah, come on in. Yeah. And it's like, and of course, again, that was sort of the thing. And even though, you were under 18 and that kind of stuff, this stuff happened all the time. And, just to go to expand on it, if you could do this with alcohol, you could also do this things with cigarettes. You could also do this with going to the to the adult shop and going, hey, yeah, I want this list of movies that apparently are really, really bad or have this particular person in it. Then you say, okay, yeah, you write the list down and pass off the $20 or whatever it is, and say, yeah, okay, can you get your older brother to go into this place and grab these couple of movies or whatever? And they say, yeah, sure, no problem, I can do that. And everyone sort of makes a couple bucks on the deal, and and you still get what you wanted, right? And there was really no way to stop it. And as hard as it is, like an adult and a parent, to control this. I mean, I said, when your kids get to that age, they're not stupid, and they have their ways, they have their systems to do this, and it's just as much as we like to idealize it and that kind of stuff, these sort of things happen, and I think in many ways, especially when the beginning of anime and that kind of stuff sort of happened. The same sort of shock factor sort of occurred. Like, everyone thinks, these are cartoons. Of course, in here in North America, the whole entire, fallacy, okay, was that cartoons were made for kids. I mean, it wasn't that this is a network, sort of contrived idea, but nothing is ever written in stone. This is one of these unwritten rules, if you will, just like in baseball. No one said that ever, cartoons were made for kids. Just because Walt Disney, made all these, animated movies designed for kids, it doesn't mean all animated features are made for kids. I mean, they made Heavy Metal, the movie, for example. That wasn't designed for kids, but but of course that was a one-off thing. But all of a sudden now we got all this anime stuff that comes out. I'm not saying that all anime is adult content, but I mean just the possibility, the genre allows that kind of thing to happen. And again, this sort of rich variety and this this untamed world was what brought in a lot of people into the anime fold, right? Because it's just this unexplored genre of topics, story writing, just great, superior and even great, animation quality that we haven't seen over here in the West, right? But of course, all of the more conservative people, the people that are, from that sort of previous mindset that how could possibly the animated features contain this kind of content, right? It's old unprogressive thinking, of course. And again, so this is sort of one of those things that that was sort of really pioneered and brought in that general interest in the early, throughout the 80s basically, and then straight through the 90s where everything just sort of picked up and the whole genre exploded.
VHS had laid down the law in the West. In the United States and Japan, some 70% of households owned a VCR, 12 million West Germans too. And there were already around 30 million tapes in France. Home video now dominated entertainment in the capitalist world.
The other interesting note is that, in addition to the fact that all these households had VCRs, a lot of the times, many households had more than one. Because obviously, if you're collecting, special materials like, for example, anime, or let's say Chinese movies or whatnot, or ethnic movies, in order for you to spread them around or to give them to your friends and that kind of stuff, you needed to have two VCRs in order to make a copy from the first VCR to the second, or multiple versions like myself, in order to keep up with all the tape dubbing, in addition to to the ones I use for editing and that kind of stuff and making the fan subs and that kind of stuff, I'd probably, average 4 to 8 extra VCRs required, for doing all the dubs and that kind of stuff, to do all the fan sub requests and that kind of stuff that I had. So, definitely, the VHS, numbers were really high, and a lot of people went through a lot of VCRs.
For the young especially, it was a means of escaping the gloomy reality of life and the ideology of Eastern European cinema. There was a huge black market for tapes. The copies were barely watchable and sometimes recorded in movie theaters. A monotone Polish voice interpreted the movies simultaneously.
Chuck Norris.
But no one cared. Young Poles devoured tapes of action movies, comedies and sci-fi. Anything that came from the West.
Now, I just wanted to point out that this is sort of like a history repeating itself almost again. This is just sort of the same idea how Japanese animation just came over here in North America, and all of a sudden there's this demand for it from the subgenre, just because it was so different than what we normally have with North American cartoons. This is just a total other sort of media that everyone was sort of interested in, right? And sure, it was in a different language, just like as here, where the Polish people and and everything in the Soviet bloc, just had this thirst for English films. Of course, some people I'm sure watched it straight in English. And had no translation, but then in the example here, they basically had a person in Polish narrate it. Okay, I guess they obviously didn't have all the sophisticated computer equipment in order to put the subtitles on, like I did. So they were basically taking copies of the movie, which was already a copy of some sort, and then they make a dub of it. again to degrade it one more generation, and of course this time holding a microphone, going, Chuck Norris is Booker T, and and basically narrating it, right? And basically, because obviously they don't have the equipment or whatever available to them to apply subtitles like I did, and basically they got over the hurdle of it being in a different language. In this case, it was English, by fan narrating it. As opposed to fan subbing it, like I did with the Japanese animation.
As a reminder, just never forget. Never forget. A lot of people who see it, young people do go, is that a VHS tape? And then truly a lot of older people go, I love it, still the best, I still have all my old tapes. I'm like, hell yeah, and then we'd give each other a high five and we'd go on our merry way.
There would be no YouTube if this wasn't here first. This is what gave people the idea of, I need to see it now, and I want to see it.
Those who experienced it look back on it with great affection because it was a community.
Personally, I can't think about movie culture without thinking about it being including home video and video stores, right? That is me. I'm as old as home video, right?
All right, I hope you found that really interesting. And again, this is just a great example of all the things that happened in the revolution of VHS, and how it basically is the same thing that we did back when we did fan subbing, and how the distribution of fan subbing and getting anime out to different people is exactly the same as what was reflected in this particular video. So I hope you found that really an interesting little twist that's just being re-verified by an actual documentary. All right, so definitely get into more videos in the near future as I continue making some more of these reaction videos. Okay, so until next time, I will see you again.